A sound rings out. A progression of waves vibrating at multiple frequencies. Radiates outward in all directions throughout space, time, and eternity. Let us be grateful for the small amount of time they spend resonating in our ears. Let us get to know them better. With your hosts, Jeremy Burns and Matthew Scott Phillips.
So, Matt.
Hello, Jeremy.
Check out what I heard, and I can't really, I Googled it and tried to find this statistic, but I couldn't find it, so I can't back it up. But this is I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listened to a podcast about podcasting, and this podcaster said that a lot of podcasts, how many times did I just say podcast? A lot of podcasts don't make it past episode 7. That's when they usually crumble.
Really?
And yet, here we are on episode 13.
Well, dude, screw that. Yeah, we're trucking right along.
Trucking along. So thank you for sticking with it, Matt.
Thank you for sticking with it, Jeremy. Jeremy does all the work. All I really do is come over here and run my mouth.
We need your delicious brain, though, Matt. We need you.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
Today, we spoke a little bit about the theory behind basic triads. So
yes.
Let's apply that to ear training, shall we?
Right, because all the theory in the world means nothing if you can't hear music and know what it is or recreate it, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So music is an art of sound. So when we're talking about basic triads, and depending on how your ear training class is set up, if you're taking such a class, you may be asked to, for example, just get a chord like that and be asked to identify it either as, a major or minor triad, and also possibly be asked to identify the inversion of it.
Mm.
And this is not hard. There's a trick to it.
There's a trick?
There's a trick. And the way we do this is, it's a little counterintuitive because your instinct is to listen to that as kind of a whole. It's kind of a single sound.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of have to remember that it's not a single sound. That's 3 notes. So try to sing those 3 notes that you just heard in your head. And I say in your head because when this happens in our skills training, people start humming all over the place. It starts sounding like a Ligeti overture or something, and people get annoyed at other people that are humming too loud and stuff. So try to sing it in your head as much as possible, but sing those 3 notes that you heard.
So this is going on in my head right now. I had trouble with that first note, but I got it.
Yeah. So, you can start a little slowly. You can just think of yourself, okay, sing the lowest, in your head, the lowest note that you hear.
Is it this guy, maybe? Yes!
Yeah, there you go. So sing the
myself.
highest note that you hear. Yeah, there you go. A lot of people do that more easily. So now you've got 2 of those 3 notes, right?
You just kind of fill in the middle part, huh?
Yeah.
So when singing these notes in your head, is it typically easier to go from lower to higher, or is there a recommended method?
I typically go low to high, but you can do what is best for you. If it's easier to go, if that's easier for you, then do that.
I wonder, and because I tend to go low to high also, but I'm a bass player. I wonder if that's because we're kind of more
bass oriented, sort of.
Well, we're listening for those frequencies, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, we're kind of listening to those. So yeah,
more sensitive to those frequencies.
Yeah. Whatever gets the job done. So identifying this as a major triad is not super hard, right? That's clearly a major triad versus if I played a minor triad. Just has that nice minor-y sound to it, right?
I feel like that was one of the first distinctions I was able to make just be able to tell the difference between major and minor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's very very important.
Particularly that third.
Yeah. Yeah, I still have trouble with that sometimes. Not determining major, minor, but switching back and forth with that third. Yeah, so.
Oh, well, when singing, if I got a guy on my left singing a root and the guy on my right singing the fifth, and I'm supposed to fill in the third, that is a little bit of pressure because you don't have If you're trying to harmonize on the fifth, you have something to kind of anchor onto.
Right.
The third, you're just kind of on your own.
Yeah. You've got to think all about context. Think sad if it's a minor chord.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, sad. So what I've been playing, these are all root position chords. So pretty easy to identify root position chords. If I was to play this. So first of all, major or minor?
I'm hearing mainly like this harmony of a fourth is mainly what
That's
I'm hearing.
an interesting observation. There's a reason you're hearing that fourth. It's because there's a fourth in there. When you sing those three notes this time, start with the lowest note, or the highest if you prefer, but start with the lowest note. And then... Those last two notes, they were a fourth apart.
Yes.
The reason that is because that root has been moved up an octave, and so now the third and the fifth are on the bottom, and those top two notes are a fourth apart. And that is a huge clue in that we are now in a first inversion major triad.
So It's funny, you asked me if that was major or minor, and I didn't even answer that. I just said, I hear a fourth.
Yeah.
But there's something to that because it's the first thing that jumped out at me.
Yeah. So this is a first inversion triad because that fourth is in the highest two notes.
Okay.
And our third is, and that's technically a minor third. Right? So that third is in the bottom and the fourth is on the top.
Mm-hmm.
So first inversion, as opposed to root position, where you really don't hear a fourth.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
more complete or more straightforward.
Yeah, a little more complete, a little more straight, a little more stable.
A little more stable,
You
yes.
know,
yes.
root position, first inversion triads. They probably want to resolve down to, or probably want to resolve somewhere. For example, or or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it sounds a little more stable. The root position does, and there's no fourth in there.
Yeah, there's not that little bit of dissonance.
Yeah, because what we have is 2/3, of course, right? Major third, and then minor third, and that creates our major chord. When we move up to first inversion, that root is moved up an octave, leaving the third on the bottom, and that inversion of the perfect fifth between the root and the fifth inverted to a perfect fourth creates a fourth.
Yeah.
Right? So if I am then playing another major triad, and notice I'm skipping around on the keyboard a lot because your professor's going to do this too. You don't just get to stay in the comfortable range.
Yeah, you need to be able to identify the whole frequency range, not just those middle.
Absolutely.
7 or 8 notes.
If I then instead play this chord, do you still hear a fourth?
Play it one more time.
Do you hear a fourth there?
I think I kind of detect a fourth in there.
Yeah.
And this might be because we're in a higher range now and I'm just less sensitive to this now.
Yeah, probably, yeah. You get old and you can't hear high stuff.
Hey, I never said I was old. No, but like, I was able to hear the fourth better in the lower register.
Yeah.
But now I do detect I detect some semblance of a fourth.
Yeah. It's between those first two notes. Yeah.
Okay.
And what has happened now is if we started in root position, and then the root was moved up an octave, which created a fourth between the highest two, and left the third on the bottom. If we then take the third of that chord and move it up an octave as well, so now we've left the fifth on the bottom. So that fourth between the fifth, now going up to the root, now has our major third on top of that, and that is second inversion. So sing the notes. If you hear a perfect fourth between the lowest note and the middle note, and then a major third above that, and to me that really stands out. That major third.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at a second inversion triad. Whereas if that perfect fourth is between the highest two notes, then you're looking at a first inversion triad. And if you can't detect a fourth at all, if it just sounds like thirds, then we're talking about root position.
Okay, so a quick review here. So root position, again, that's so what is that, a C major?
Yeah, C major.
So that's a C, or scale degree 1 for the C chord.
Yeah.
E, scale degree 3,
Yep.
major third. And then scale degree 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
The root, the third, and the fifth.
In that order. Root is always going to be in the bass.
Yes.
In root position.
Yeah. Sing the notes. Ask yourself, do you hear a perfect fourth, and if so, where?
Okay.
If there is no perfect fourth, root position.
Boom.
First inversion, ask yourself, do you hear a fourth, and if so, where? If that fourth is on top, first inversion triad.
Okay, so the first inversion is going to be the same 3 notes, only the third is in the bass.
Right.
The third is in the...
And the fourth, and there's a fourth on top.
Okay.
Second inversion, sing the notes. Ask yourself, do you hear a fourth, and if so, where? If you hear a fourth between the bottom two notes, then you're looking at a second inversion triad. And again, to me, that puts the third on the top, and that third is pretty distinctive in my ears. So root, first inversion, second inversion.
Here's something funny I'll comment on. Well, the root position I got pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
And then this first inversion I didn't have as much of a problem with, I don't think. It took me a second to think about the second inversion. To me, that fourth was more pronounced in the first inversion compared to the second inversion.
Yeah, and that's because it's on top. It's the two highest notes you're hearing.
So they kind of punch through a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they totally do. If you're having a problem recognizing that fourth on the bottom of a second inversion chord, then you can listen to those top two notes that are a third apart. You can almost sing down the major scale and...
I have found that to be one of the best ways to identify a third, honestly. Not based on where it is, but based on where it could go.
Yeah,
strangely.
yeah. You can sing down to tonic and recognize that as a major third, right?
Yeah.
Mi, re, do. So pretty easy stuff, huh?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. So with the minor chords, same principle. You can still pretty much figure out a minor chord in root position without a whole lot of trouble. It sounds sad. And, if you arpeggiate those out, you have a minor third on the bottom, and then a major third on the top.
1, 3, 5.
Yeah. First inversion, it still has that perfect fourth in the top, right?
Right.
Yeah. Second inversion, you're listening to it for a very distinctive minor third on top and a perfect fourth on bottom.
Yeah, that is a strong. I can tell that third is strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the exact same principle. Yeah.
Is there anything that makes minor more of a challenge compared to major in terms of the distances from the notes? Or is it just major versus minor?
Is there anything that makes minor more challenging? Well,
For the inversion specifically.
not if you're doing things this way.
Okay.
Sometimes, people can get confused because if I play, if you're just listening to harmonic dissonance level, that may sound, majorish, because there is a major 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're just listening for dissonance levels, people can confuse that and think it's a major 6 and make it sound major. But if you sing those notes, start with the lowest note you hear. Then it's pretty clearly minor, right? So, like, if your professor's being really mean and giving you like a chorale style, open voicing like this, it can be easy to not necessarily hear that as the right quality. But do the same process, sing all those notes. And then it becomes very obviously minor, right?
So this kind of bums me out, Matt.
What's that, Jeremy?
Well, earlier I was thinking that the second inversion, my telltale, would be that third. And that there's always a third on the high end. But now that we're taking into consideration this more open fingering, then that you can still have a third on top, but then you can have the root in the bass or you can have the third in the bass.
Yep.
So it's almost like you have to listen for, in the open positioning, it's almost like you have to listen for a thirdishness. An overwhelming thirdishness or fourthishness.
Well, you always kind of have to engage your theory brain.
Yes.
You don't ever get away from, I can play these notes wherever I want. If I play, that's a fairly open position, and ask you, what inversion of that. If you sing that lowest note.
Yeah, that feels really 30 to me.
Yeah. So you can almost hear, you almost want it to go. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is first inversion. And like I said, sing all the notes you hear. And I'm not going to hit that note.
In your head, you could probably sing higher.
In your head, you can hit it, right? In your head, you'll know where it is.
Which is where you should be singing it anyway.
Which is where you should be singing it anyway.
Cool.
Yeah, never disengage the theory brain.
Totally.
The theory brain can only help you.
So, like I said, major and minor, pretty straightforward.
Fairly easy.
After a minimal amount of ear training, you can probably figure out a major and minor.
Yeah.
Now it's going to get a little trickier here.
A little trickier, but not as much. If we play a diminished triad root position. Yeah. This is a pretty distinctive sound. And when we start playing inversions of a diminished triad, that sound is still very distinctive.
It's still tense.
Yeah. I don't do very well trying to hear dissonance levels in that. It just all sounds the same.
Yeah.
So the same thing applies. Sing the notes. The difference is when you get up here, you no longer have a perfect fourth, and this is first inversion, by the way. You no longer have a perfect fourth. What you have is a tritone.
Can we showcase the root position diminished?
Yeah.
Before we go into the
So root position diminished chord. Yeah. It's made up of 2 minor thirds, right? And then
okay.
Yeah. Root position diminished chord. When we take that into first inversion, that dissonance level is still very similar.
Correct.
Yeah. What we have on top now is not a perfect fourth. What we have is a tritone.
The devilish tritone.
Yes. So if you hear that tritone on top, you're looking at a first inversion diminished chord, quite possibly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it sounds like it's equally dissonant, but it does sound more spread out texture-wise.
Yeah. Sing the notes. Be good with your intervals. And then again with a second inversion, that tritone is going to be on the bottom.
Yeah.
And a minor third on top. So when you hear a tritone, you are not in a major or minor triad at all.
Okay.
Then you're talking about diminished or augmented. So augmented chords.
Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, we're getting into some confusion here, right?
So yeah, so I have no problem determining diminished from major or minor, but diminished and augmented, when someone's playing those together, it took a little while for me to finally.
Because that could have easily been a diminished chord, right? It's not. It's an augmented chord.
Okay.
They are both what we call, and when you get into advanced theory, you'll learn the term symmetrical. They're both symmetrical sets, meaning they're capable of dividing the chromatic scale equally.
Okay.
So either by thirds or by fourths. Let's not worry about that. But
I see what you're saying. So like a diminished chord, you can start off on C diminished, for example, and keep on going a minor third up, and then end back at that root C and be able to repeat it, right?
Exactly.
So there's all minor thirds, nothing else but minor thirds in this guy.
Same thing happens with an augmented chord. Yeah. Yeah. Same thing happens with an augmented chord.
But it's all major thirds.
Yeah, but it's in major thirds. So it's that symmetry that's similar between them, and it's that symmetry you're hearing when you think, oh yeah, that's a diminished chord, and it's so not, right? So sing the notes.
Okay. And this is more challenging also with the augmented and diminished chords.
This is definitely challenging.
Singing in your head.
Yeah.
Because of those intervals.
Yes.
But let me try it. Yeah.
So we have this major third on top. We have this major third on bottom. Right? This is all major thirds. When we move to first inversion, it's still all major thirds.
But you know what's happening now is because there's not that kind of relationship between the third and the root. I'm having a harder time being able to sing down, or to, how you normally can identify a third.
Yeah.
You just got to deal with that, I guess.
Yeah. Practice.
Yeah.
Practice.
Right on.
If you can't hear, if all you hear is major thirds, then it's that's a major third, and then major third. If all you're hearing is major thirds, then you're dealing with an augmented chord.
Yeah.
Augmented chords don't really have roots.
They are rootless.
They are rootless and diminished chords, especially when you get into fully diminished 7 chords, they don't really have a root.
There's not like as much of a stable strength between the chord members.
Right, exactly. Well, there's not that all-encompassing characteristic perfect fifth around which all tonal harmony is based. It's not present in those notes.
Yes.
So it doesn't really have a root per se. Any one of those notes can be considered the root. I don't know how far into this we want to get, but when you think C, E, G sharp, augmented triad, you think, well, the root is C, but if you start on E, then you think E, G sharp, B sharp, augmented triad, so E is the root now. Or if you think G sharp, B sharp, D double sharp, now G sharp is the root. So, when I say they have no root, what I mean is any one of those notes can be the root of an augmented triad.
Put that root wherever you want to.
Yes.
Bass players, the world is your oyster. With these
absolutely,
chords.
absolutely. The root is what you say it is.
Yeah.
And when you start analyzing pieces of classical music that modulated, especially in the 19th century, they use this to their advantage by saying, well, this chord is what I say it is, and we can move to what key I say it is because none of this. We're just calling it this. It's not a sonic phenomenon to say the root of an augmented chord is C or something. Diminished chords are similar, except that when you have just a diminished triad, you can say that there's a root there because there's a tritone that's moving as you move inversions. Right? So you can say that there's a root to a diminished triad. A fully diminished seventh chord, on the other hand, the same thing will happen. In D, F, A flat, C flat, D is the root. But then in F, A flat, C flat, D, or E double flat, F is the root.
There's where that double flat comes in.
Yeah, I told you it would happen.
Uh-huh.
So the same thing happens. This is because these are symmetrical sets.
Diminished chords for me were always kind of a good cheat for modulation for songwriting. If
Absolutely.
If I wanted to modulate, it's so easy. Just throw a D, just throw a diminished chord in front of that, and it can resolve easily to what as long as you. I played within the rules for the most part.
Yeah,
but
technically speaking, according to the Big Fat Rule Book, when you play a diminished 7 chord, it can resolve to any note that is a half step above any of those 4 notes.
Any of those 4 notes.
Because any of those 4 notes can be considered the root of that chord.
Right, because they're all kind of leading tone. They're all kind of acting as leading
Yeah,
tones.
they all have leading tone potential.
Yeah. We've had a pretty good discussion on the 4 basic types of triads, right?
Yep.
Major,
Minor, augmented, and diminished.
Do you mind playing them real quick?
Oh, yeah, sure. Major, minor, augmented, and diminished.
Hey, can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
Can we actually do them all from the same root?
Okay, yeah, sure.
So
So,
C, A.
Major,
Uh-huh.
minor, augmented, and diminished.
Cool. So a quick little description, because we talked about this a little bit for the theory episode, right? But to me, majors, they seem more stable, more kind of positive, or more upbeat.
They're
or more
happy.
Happier. Yes. Minor, we kind of discussed to be a little bit more sad or profound or
sad or profound
deeper.
or melancholic or something, yeah.
The diminished chord for me just says tension and stress, something that needs to go somewhere other than where it is, right?
Absolutely.
Where the augmented chord almost sounds a little more dreamy.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I don't know what else to say about the augmented. How would you describe that?
Dreamy is good. It's kind of like the flashback chord, right?
Yep. Ooh, you're not seeing it, but I'm doing waves with my hands.
Yeah, he's doing the Wayne's World.
What the hell's Wayne's World?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So anyways,
right.
I think that was pretty good. But now let's talk a little. Let's give him a tease, shall we, of what the 7th chord is.
All
since
right.
we have a little bit of extra time.
So 7th chords, there are 4 types.
Okay.
There, with every 7th chord, what a 7th chord is a major triad with the interval of a 7th placed on top of it.
Yes.
And the quality of the chord plus the quality of that 7th is what creates the different types of 7 chords. So, for example, there is what we call a major 7 chord.
So this is the C major 7 chord.
Yeah. Major triad, major 7th.
Yeah.
So major 7th chord. You'll often hear this abbreviated as major 7. Yeah, for example, C major 7.
C capital M7.
Yeah, which is that chord. There is the major minor 7th chord, where we have a major triad and a minor 7. So, and you'll often hear this referred to as just a 7 chord, right? And you will also hear this referred to as a dominant 7 chord, because this is, when you get into theory, this is our 5/7 chord.
The 5/7.
You
Yes.
know, that very, very badly wants to resolve to the 1 of a key, like.
So a 5 is the most natural. 5-1 is like one of the most resolving resolutions you can have.
It is the most resolving resolution you can have.
Or is it? Because to me, the 7th chord makes it even more of a sense of urgency. You know. What do you think about that?
So when you think, the diminished 7 chord.
I'm sorry. A major, like a dominant 7th chord.
Oh yeah.
Where the 5 wanted to go to 1, the dominant 7 just really wants to go to 1. Am I right? Or am I?
Yeah, you are right.
Yeah. Yeah. That felt good.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Dominant 7.
Yeah.
What feels really good actually is a 4/3 suspension.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, right?
That's a tease for the 4/3 suspension.
That's
though.
a tease for the 4/3
We're not going to hold you
suspension.
accountable for that right now. Okay, so I'm sorry. Where were we at?
Where were we? We digressed again. Okay.
As we do.
All right. So,
So we got the major 7.
major 7, often abbreviated just called major 7. We've got the major minor 7, often just called a dominant 7 or just a 7.
And these are all based on the major chords so far.
Yeah. And, something that is extremely rare, as a matter of fact, you're almost never going to see it, is the minor major 7, minor triad, and a major 7. So.
At first listen, that almost sounds augmented to me, like an augmented chord to me.
Yeah, well.
Is there an augmented interval in there?
Is there? So.
Definitely something about it says I don't hear that very often.
Yeah, that is actually. Yeah, you could consider that an augmented 5th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe.
My point being, there is something very unique about this chord.
Very
that you don't
weird,
hear
yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never written anything with a minor major 7 chord because I forgot they existed. But I think I might want to dig that up.
Yeah, they're not common. And then of course the minor 7 chord. Which is often abbreviated as just minor 7, like C minor 7. And you probably have written stuff with that chord.
Hey, anytime a train goes by, you'll recognize that chord.
Oh yeah?
It's true.
Wow.
It's actually like a C6 chord. So let me nerd out for a second, okay? So C6, you got the notes C, E, G, and A. So it's really, if you invert it, it's actually an A minor 7 chord. If you read it with A, you'll have the A.
So A, C, E, G. Yeah. So in pop music and in jazz and things like that, they'll refer to 6 chords like C6. In traditional classical music theory, we consider that an inverted minor 7 chord.
Hey. So a little difference between the jazz world and the classical
Indeed,
world.
yeah. Indeed.
Because you'll see 6 chords, you'll see 7th chords.
Yeah.
And to totally simplify it, if I may,
Yeah.
it's basically you're just taking that root, you're just basically taking that basic triad and then you're adding the scale degree 7 to it.
Yeah.
For the 7th chord, or scale degree 6 in the case of a 6th chord.
Yeah. And adding scale degree 6 is what, if you just call the root something else, you have a minor 7 chord. depending on what theory book you're using, people will acknowledge the idea of a sixth chord in music theory, depending on where it's going to there, where that sixth is resolving. If it's acting like the root of the chord and moving according to that, then they're more likely to call it an inverted minor 7 chord. But
Cool.
yeah, it has to do something to distinguish itself as the interval of a sixth over, like resolve, for example.
So not to overkill or to inundate, but actually that's kind of thing is good for this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Can we talk about just the types of 7 chords and how they make us feel?
Yeah. Okay.
Let's start off with that major 7 chord. That sounds kind of dreamy to me.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like unanswered. Not unanswered, but you're just floating in limbo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It does. It does.
And to me, I can always tell there's a softness to it, a delicateness to it. Yeah, like that 7, it wants to go somewhere, but it doesn't need to.
Yeah. Right.
It could go somewhere, but it doesn't need to.
but might not.
But might not, right. Because a lot of songs start off with that chord.
Yeah.
Some songs actually start off with that chord.
Yeah.
Where the dominant 7, I don't know a lot of songs. There's probably a lot of them, but I don't know songs that start off on the dominant 7 and then resolve.
Maybe Jeremiah was a bullfrog or something.
Hey. So right now you're playing
This is the dominant 7. So this would be C7.
Moving on to that dominant 7 or the major minor 7.
Yeah.
This one definitely to me feels like it wants to go somewhere.
Yeah. Well, it definitely does.
Because it seems like there's 2 resolutions that are trying to occur here. There's the 4th going down to the 3rd, or
right.
I'm sorry, going up to the going down to the 3rd.
Yep. So there's the 7th that wants to resolve a half step down. And then there's also the 3rd of that chord that wants to resolve a half step up.
I play the whole chord and resolve so we can see if we can hear those.
Yeah, and so we have.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty.
Okay, now let's talk about the elusive major, what did you say, minor major chord?
Minor major. There's not a lot to say about this chord because it just doesn't happen that much.
Now, to me, I felt like an augmentedness.
Yeah.
If that's a word.
Augmentedness. Well, there is an augmented 5th in there,
yeah.
which was also a minor 6, but.
So that might be something to listen for if you're trying to identify a minor major chord.
Yeah.
If it comes up.
Yeah. Which it probably won't.
This is like the redheaded stepchild of all the chords.
It is. It really is.
I don't think I've ever composed anything with this chord, actually. And
I don't think anybody ever has.
Well, maybe we should dig it up and knock the dust off of it.
I'm sure somebody has used this chord at some point. It does exist.
Yeah. But of all the chords, this to me sounds the closest to augmented or diminished. It has that same level of uncertainty.
Dissonance level or tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we have the last type of chord.
And then, finally, the minor 7th chord, also just known as minor 7.
You'll hear that when a train goes by.
Yep.
So how do we describe this sound? How does that make you feel?
It has a very Mr. Rogers quality to it.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning when the little train, when the train is coming through?
Yeah.
I can hear that. In fact, it almost sounds like it could be the basis of like a bumper music that kind of can be used in an ad that maybe conveys progression of some kind.
Progression or, environmental stability.
Yes.
Or something like that. Or like Apple products or something.
Play me that minor 7 chord.
A minor 7.
Every year, 14 billion, such and such.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. There you go. There you go.
I guess we had a pretty good discussion then on the basic triads. We talked about the major chord.
Indeed.
We talked about the minor chord.
Minor chord.
We talked about those and their inversions.
We
talked about diminished.
And
augmented.
And augmented.
And their inversions.
Which spawned some discussion.
Yes, indeed. And then we teased a little bit about those 7 chords.
About those 7 chords.
And we could
yeah.
talk about more of the inversions in a later episode.
Yeah, those inversions are there, and they are important, and we will get to them.
Okay, so before we take it out, let's hear those chords one more time. And can we do it from the same root, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Major, minor, augmented, and diminished.
And then one more time, to me, the major sounds more happy, upbeat,
Right.
stable.
Yep.
You know, that minor has more of a sad or profound or deep kind of feeling
it's
to it.
sad.
So, yeah.
It's
I think
sad.
you said something like it's more emotionally, it's got more emotional
More emotional impact, more emotional potential.
potential. Yeah, good one.
Oh.
Okay, and then that diminished chord, mainly I'm hearing just it's like stress or it's like tension. It
Yeah.
needs to be released somewhere.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas the augmented chord has a more kind of just a dreamy,
Floaty kindness.
Yeah, you're floating in limbo, kind of a surreal kind of feel
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
well,
This has been fun.
this has been fun. We'll be back soon. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening. And remember, a candle loses nothing by sharing its flame. Share this with another curious musician. You can reach us at info@musicstudent101.com. We'll be listening.